You are very welcome. I am Ahonu, and with me, as always, is my lovely Aingeal Rose. Now, many of you will remember that for a number of years, we used to do every Sunday an Answers from the Akashic Records session. And that was very important and very well received by people, where we would ask of the Akashic Records deep questions about reality and the world and the universe and all kinds of big questions. You remember that, Aingeal Rose, and it was very popular. And in fact, we are still in the course of turning those into a whole series of books called Answers from the Akashic Records. And so far, we've got 12 of those books published out of 100. So it's a work in progress. Now, as a result of recent developments in the world and arising from our own continuous exploration into consciousness, we are finding that there are more questions coming up. And of course, there always will be questions coming up. So here's the kind of things that we're going to ask in our session today. The first one is, does the spirit really choose ahead of time to come into a dysfunctional family or to have a traumatic birth experience? And if so, why? Our second question is going to be about the belief in the fact that we forget. We supposedly forget everything about our origins when we are born onto the earth plane. That's what we're told anyway. And we're going to explore a little bit into that because we need to know about this forgetfulness. And number three is it important to learn through pain and diversity? And this idea is very popular with people, and we're questioning it because we don't really believe that it is necessary at all. So we're going to explore from the Akashic Records about learning through pain and trauma and whether that whole business is necessary at all. And finally, we're going to ask about who or what really created the human. And we're talking about the biological human, and we want to know about the origins of that. So we've a lot ahead of us, and we're going to get stuck into it straight away. So Aingeal Rose, as you may know, says a prayer, but she has already said it prior to our recording here, and we're going to begin with the first question. Aingeal Rose.
Let me comment first, Ahonu.
Sure.
I just want to say, while opening the records today and saying the prayer, first two colors I saw were purple and white. And purple, which just says that Source has heard us because it knows the content of what we're going to ask. But purple is usually a color of suffering on some level, or somebody who has come up through their lifetimes with a theme of suffering or trauma in some way. And of course, white is the illumination we're going to receive today, which is right next to that purple. So I just wanted to start with that.
All right. Does the spirit really choose ahead of time to come into a dysfunctional family or to have a traumatic birth? And if so, why?
Okay. What Source is saying is that the spirit does know ahead of time what it's coming into. All right. So it does choose it on some level. It does know ahead of time that it's coming into a planet that is, for lack of a better word, predominantly unenlightened. Okay. So many spirits come in here with the purpose to try to make the world a better place, or try to make some progress towards illumination on this dimension. Okay, so in other words, it's not to say that the circumstances on planet Earth are ideal by any means. In fact, they're grossly imperfect, according to Source. However, spiritual beings, care about evolution, care about remembering the truth. They care about causing some sort of progress, whether it be in love or medicine or illumination in some way. Predominantly, that's what most spirits come here for. However, there are a few that are very asleep and don't know what any of that is about.
Right.
They come here basically asleep. They come here and live, normal lives asleep. Okay, and by asleep I mean unaware of any higher purpose. So they may be the ones that go to school, go to college, are taught to get a good job, work 9 to 5, and basically have no love for what they're doing. Follow the rules, in other words. Follow the 3D rules. There are those that come in and their lives are all about that. So they come in with not a whole lot of awareness of making the world a better place or trying to alleviate suffering or raise the consciousness.
Now, that's not to tar everybody with the same brush,
No.
but in general, what you're saying is that people, generally, the majority of people on planet Earth are somewhat asleep because they don't remember their purpose, they don't remember what they're here for, and they indulge in a kind of a slavery mentality. In other words, when authority says jump, they say how high.
Well, they follow the rules of authority and religions and belief systems handed down.
Right.
And they think that that's what their life is about. So they build an identity based on it.
Now, here's a question that came to me as you were speaking there, and it's about when you said that spirits would come here for evolutionary progress.
Mm-hmm.
That would insinuate to me that there must have been something not quite right about the spirit before it came in if it needed evolutionary progress. Like, in other words, if it was perfect at all, and we've discussed this in prior sessions where we found that the spirit is not perfect, but how imperfect would it need to be to choose an earth incarnation in order to progress spiritually?
All right, well, that's a two-purpose question, because according to Source, there is a bigger reason spirits come here, and it's not necessarily because they're imperfect. It's because they can see that this planet, needs a lot of help. In other words, it's a planet that has been predominantly asleep and unaware of the true nature of divinity. So many people or spirits come here in order to make progress somewhere along that road. Now that's the big picture. So as far as the personal picture, and I do think there's spirits who come here that they're not necessarily here to learn quote unquote lessons. They're just here to help evolve the planet. Okay. There are those who might not have mastered certain aspects of consciousness and still need their own evolution in terms of enlightenment. And this is a place that will catalyze that. Or when I say catalyze, it means that it has qualities within it that can appear as challenges for people. In order, if they overcome them, then they learn through that way. But it isn't a given that we have to come here to learn lessons. I think we got to be careful of the language because there are beings that just haven't experienced certain things in their consciousness and want to come here to know about those or to experience those. And then there are others that come here because they're awake. Let's take the new children, for example. Many of them come in awake. I mean, they come in remembering their lifetimes. They come in extra gifts at very young ages. They would be more awake than we were when we were born.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So we can see there is an evolution that's been going on.
But there's also a concerted effort to vaccinate them and to dumb them down in lots of ways and medicate them and
There is.
And put them through a schooling system that teaches them obedience and as you said, to
Keeps them asleep.
Follow the rules and to stay asleep. Yes,
That is true, but that's what Source is saying is that's part of the problem of Earth. Okay, in other words, when you take a look at Earth, Earth is a place that has been controlled, that has been suppressed. Let's say it's giving me the word suppressed, and what it means by that is there are circumstances and conditions on Earth that have prevented people from becoming more aware of what their true nature is. And this is a condition of Earth.
right.
So this is exactly the reason why some beings come here in order to help enlighten people, bring more information to the planet, as well as those spirits who have not experienced those sorts of conditions. Let's say they want to come here and experience and know about what that is.
So is there a level of spirit at which the spirit would not need that kind of growth of awareness or that kind of experience, or wouldn't even entertain the thought of coming to help others grow in awareness?
Yeah, there's a level of spirit that doesn't always choose to come to Earth. I think once you reach a particular level of consciousness and negativity and struggle just is not part of your being anymore,
right,
then you may have mastered that yourself. However, that doesn't stand to assume that spirits that have done that will never return here. There are many spirits that do return as an act of service and love to this planet, because don't forget, many spirits were here in the beginning. And the planet in the beginning was real different. The atmosphere was different. There was a time where it was much more ethereal, much more beautiful, where the beings that were here then were, creating a world that could sustain life. This was before there were any sort of attacks on them.
I apologize for the abrupt stopping of that session right there. But the fact is, this session was broken into numerous different questions. And the next question we were dealing with was learning through trauma. And we're going to deal with that in the next recording. So thank you for staying with us. We appreciate you and we look forward to seeing you shortly.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.